Good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us today. We appreciate your time. We've done a few Tech Thursdays in the past. Some of you may have been on those. If so, thank you. But it's been a minute, hasn't it, Chris? And this is our first one of 2021. So we've got some exciting stuff to share with you guys today. I did record, or I've started the recording for this meeting, so we will make sure a YouTube link is available to you a little later on today. But let's get rolling. So my name is Kelly Gindelsberger. I am one of our partner success managers. I've been here almost 3 years, so time definitely flies. I'm a partner success manager covering the Northeast and the Mid-Atlantic, teamed up with Carl Bierke. So if you're on this call and you are one of our accounts, thank you for your partnership and thank you for attending. Really, that goes for everyone, but extra love to our partners. I've been in the data protection space about 8 years, and I've actually had the pleasure of working with Chris Bain at 3 different companies, Infrascale being our third company. So with that, Chris, do you want to take a minute to introduce yourself and your background?
Sure, absolutely. So my name is Chris Bain. I am the Chief Solutions Architect here at Infrascale. I've been in this space for a little over 20 years now. So I've seen it grow all the way from backing stuff up to tape and shipping it off in a truck and calling to get it back when you need it, to the new world we live in now that we're going to kind of go over today, with being able to do image-based backups, boot things on the appliances, replicate, and then boot stuff in the cloud. So it's been really fun to kind of see this go, and I've enjoyed working with Kelly the whole time. We actually came and started at Infrascale on the same day.
my work BFF for sure. All right, well, Chris, let's go ahead and get started. Sure. So here's what we're going to be covering today. Chris is going to share with us some new things with our Infrascale products. He's also going to show us the virtual appliance and how that works. Whether you've been a partner of ours for years and years or you're a brand new partner, you might not know about the virtual appliance. So it's something we're going to talk about today. And then I'm going to share with you tips and tricks for interacting with Infrascale. You guys know us, we're here for you, of course, anytime you need anything, but I think that there's some resources that not all partners know about. So we're going to make sure to cover those, and then we will wrap up with a live Q&A.
So let's go ahead and jump into what's new with Infrascale products. So we have a couple of very exciting things around the corner here. One of them is going to be Hyper-V native support. So the ability to protect a Hyper-V environment without having to install any agents. So that it's going to be great to be able to back those up and recover them. And basically will be parallel support with where we are with VMware right now. So we'll be able to have that integration. If you're interested and you have customers that are using Hyper-V, go ahead and shoot us up an email and let us know. We're currently looking for people to jump into the Hyper-V beta program, and we can definitely get you entered into that. Now, the next thing is going to be docs.infrascale.com. I'm going to briefly just say that's something that you should bookmark right now, and I will bring that up while I go through and show you guys the virtual appliance, because that is now where we've moved all of our documentation, and even the install guides and everything else for the virtual appliances is now hosted on docs.infrascale.com. Plus, it shows our current shipping appliances. So one of the neat tricks that you can do is you can go there, look at the specs for the currently shipping appliances, and then make sure that your virtual environment matches those specs at least, so that you know that you're going to have good performance when you roll it out. And then last but definitely not least is Google multi-factor authentication across the board. So everyone's been asking us, we have multi-factor authentication now, but it's a simple email or text message. We're actually implementing the Google Authenticator, so you'll be able to have that true MFA, to have that security, to know that even if your credentials got compromised, no one would be able to log in and get to your data and delete your backups. Because that's the new fear that's coming around with ransomware, is not only are they attempting to get the active data that's on your machines, they're trying to come in after your backups. And this is just going to be one extra step of protection to make sure that we can prevent that. Now, let's go ahead and jump into looking at the virtual appliance. Now, we have a physical appliance that we offer, but we also offer a virtual appliance. Now, when we take a look here, we can see here's a standard ESXi host. We can see that we've got, CPU, memory, storage. Now, to deploy this, it's pretty easy. We tell it we want to create a new machine. We're going to use the OVA that Infrascale provides you guys. So here we're just going to give it a name that we wanted to have within that virtual environment. I'm going to call it Infrascale DRAS. And then down here, we're going to want to click and pick that OVA that we have out there and get that deployed. Now I'm going to go ahead and put it on the mega RAID, which is something we need to pay attention to, is what disk we're putting the different volumes on. And we'll go into a little bit more about that in 1 second. Now we definitely don't want to power it on when we deploy it, because again, we want to change some of those disk options that we have before we boot the machine up. So here we're going to go ahead and tell it we want to go out and deploy it. We're going to see our little progress bar down there run across. I did actually speed this up a little bit because I figure in our careers we've all seen enough progress bars. We don't need to sit here and watch another one. And now that we've got that machine configured or out there, let's go ahead and hit edit. Now this is where we can edit the amount of CPUs that we have, the amount of RAM. And again, that's going to be based on how many machines you're going to want to be booting on top of it. Now we can also see here we've got 3 different disks defined. One of them, hard disk 1, is going to be our big storage. Hard disk 2 is going to be for the OS to boot up. And then hard disk 3 is going to be for our catalogs. Now what's important about our catalogs, right here we've got them sitting on the mega RAID, which is not what we want. So we're going to want to delete that catalog volume and then tell it we want to add in a new volume. We're going to make it the same size, but we're going to make sure that this disk is placed on top of SSD storage. So we're going to move that location, and we're going to go ahead and put it on one of our SSD disks that we have sitting out there. Now, if you have vCenter and vMotion and all the bells and whistles, you can actually just right-click and migrate those disks and move them around. So you don't have to go through the step of deleting the default one and creating a new one. But in case you don't have vCenter configured or you want to do it by hand, this is the easy way to do it. Now we are going to tell it to delete that other catalog volume that we created, and then it's going to go ahead and create this new one, again, on top of SSD. Now we can see here that it's gone ahead and completed doing that, and we'll go ahead and power this machine up. Now, by default, it's going to boot up off the top one, but we do have other options in here for debugging and troubleshooting. Now, as you can see, it's booting up the cloud failover appliance for us. And now once it comes up, we're going to have the console view. Now, the console view is definitely one useful tool. Pretty much the main point of using the console view at this point is to get the IP address that's out there for this machine. So we can see that this has pulled an IP of 192.168.1.250. And down at the bottom, it's telling us the system's ready, but we need to go in and configure it. Now, how do we do that? That's pretty easy. We'll jump over to the appliance setup. So here we're going to log into the dashboard real quick. Now, this is the Infrascale dashboard. It's a single pane of glass to manage all of your appliances and all the different Infrascale solutions that we offer. Here we're going to drop down to DR sites and appliances, and we can see we don't have anything configured right now. Now, if we jump over to that 192.168.1.250 IP address that our machine is sitting on, we're going to be able to bring up its web interface and log into it. Now here we'll use the default credentials, and once we log in, it's going to ask us to change those and update them. Now the first step, it's going to go out there and it's going to scan those disks. Now, as I mentioned, it's very important to make sure that we put the catalogs on fast performing SSD disks. So here we can see, we're going to go ahead and take the 2 terabyte disk. We're going to assign that to storage. And then we're going to take this 180 gigabyte disk, and we're going to assign that over to Well, actually, we're not going to assign it to storage. Oopsie. Let me remove that, and we'll assign that to our catalogs. Now, when we click next, it's going to give us a little preview of what we've got going on and what we've told it to do. And then we hit finish. It's going to go ahead and provision it, and then it's going to restart this up so that we now have our storage disk and our catalog disk. And it's going to actually take some time to go in and set up, our deduped file system and do all of that, extra work. So here we can see that it's restarting our appliance if we go over to the console. And now I did speed up the booting of the appliance a little bit. Again, we've seen enough progress bars. We don't need to watch some more. And because this is the first time we're booting it up with storage, it is going to come up and it's going to need to go out there and set up that storage. So here we can see the RAID status is good. And now it's going to start the database services. It's going to create the block address map. Now, what does that mean? We do a block level dedupe. So this is actually setting up that fingerprint database and that catalog to be able to do that block level dedupe. Now, what's nice about the fact that we do a block level dedupe is because we do that, we're only pulling across the minimum amount of information we need to be able to back things up. And we also use that when we do replication. So when we're replicating things from this primary appliance to the secondary appliance, we only have to send those unique blocks that have changed since the last time we shipped data over. So we don't have to worry about, slow bandwidth connections or anything like that. We're going to be able to move the appropriate amount of data. Now, once we get that set up, we're going to come in. There's a couple more things it needs to configure while it's getting everything set up. It's going to set up the UCAR database. And now it says the system is ready. You are welcome, which means that everything's up and running. And now we can go in and actually configure the appliance to back up some clients. Now here we can see we've logged into that appliance. Now right now we don't have anything set up to back up. So if we go over and we look at the clients, we're actually going to see that we don't have anything running other than the backups of myself. Now with that being said, let's go over to the VMware tab and we're going to say we want to add a connection. Now here we simply put in either our ESX or our vCenter information. And we're going to connect out to that server. Now on the next screen, we do have an option which allows us to automatically add and continue to add any of the machines that are out there on this connection, which I really like that because commonly, especially now in the virtual infrastructures, people roll out machines and forget to tell the backup team that they need to have them protected. Now here we can see we've got ones that have a square and ones that have the play button. So we can see what machines are online and what machines are not powered on. So we can even back up those non-powered on VMs. Here we're going to protect the most important server. We'll get a 2012 R2 server, and we'll go ahead and grab my laptop. So because we didn't tell it to back up everything, we just tell it we want to register them. And now they've been added, and they're assigned to the default schedule and backup settings. Now, with that being said, what are our default schedules? So if we come in here and we click, we can see here that we've got 3 machines now under the VM CBT schedule. And we're doing a full on the weekends and incrementals throughout the week. Now, we can't do incrementals forever because, again, we're doing that block level capture. Now, what's really nice about having the schedule is we can go in and we can add in more increments if we want, hourly, bi-hourly, however frequently you want to protect that data. Now here, if we come over to the clients, we don't have anything currently protected. So I'm going to tell it I want to do a manual backup. I'm going to do a full on my laptop. Now here, we can see there's multiple places that we can see what jobs are going on. we go to jobs and look at active, we can see it there. Here under clients, we can see that there's an active job. And then under VMware here, we can actually see that it's backing up disk 1, and we can see how much it's doing, and it gives us a nice little progress bar. Now, I did speed this up a little bit just so that we didn't have to sit here and watch it back up this entire laptop. Now, once we get this laptop backed up, the next thing that I want to show you guys is how we set up replication. So now that we've got a machine backed up and it's ready to go, let's go ahead and set this machine up to go ahead and start pushing that data over. We can see here, we have a successful backup from yesterday. Now, with replication, it's really easy to set up. All we have to do is go over to mode options and tell it we want to replicate to the cloud, and then hit continue. Now, what's really important is when you want to, maybe evaluate using a virtual appliance, you definitely need to reach out to your Infrascale sales rep and let them know that you want to do that, so we can open up that eval for you, so that you're not going to just get a call from the overage team that says, hey guys, what are you doing here? You don't have licenses for this. So we can actually set it up so that you have the licenses to be able to let you go out and kick the tires and use the virtual appliances and set them up. So definitely make sure that you keep your sales rep informed. And that is also what allows us to then set up this replication target in our cloud so that you'll be able to turn it on and replicate. Now, one thing that is really nice about our solution, you can see here, is we do allow you to host the primary and the secondary. So it doesn't necessarily have to replicate to the Infrascale cloud. It could actually replicate to your own data center, or if the customer has 2 data centers, replicate between those. And then here we can also control how long we want to be able to retain the data on-prem, and then how long we want to retain that data in the cloud. Now, I did mention that I wanted to show you guys what we have going on here as far as within docs.infrascale.com. So if we come over to docs.infrascale.com and we click on disaster recovery and deployment guides, we actually have the different deployment guides here for vSphere or VMware and for Hyper-V. So they go through all the way from getting the template to rolling it out, configuring the disks, setting up the licensing, and even expanding that storage space. So that's one question I get asked a lot is, well, once I've deployed this, can I modify the space that's out there? And the answer is absolutely. Let's here log into a virtual appliance. And take a look at how we would do that. So if we come up here and we go to settings, we scroll down to storage. And then from here, it's going to scan and show us all the storage we have available. So you simply just need to add another disk to this virtual machine, and you can either expand onto that new storage or actually migrate the current data that you have over to the new disk. So if you just want to add some more disks, you could do that, or you could add a larger disk and then migrate everything over to that larger disk. Now, with that being said, one extra tip and trick I like to throw out there for you. If we go ahead and look at our VMware instance, one thing we didn't take a look at earlier when we were setting this up is let's look at our Infrascale drives. We'll go ahead and hit edit. Now here's where we can configure how many CPUs and RAM and all that we want. But an important thing that we might want to consider is whether or not we want to boot on top of this virtual appliance. Now, if we do want to boot on top of this virtual appliance, we need to make sure we come in here and we check the box that says to expose the hardware to the guest OS. And that allows us to nested boot on top of our appliance any of the machines that you have in your environment. Now, why would you want to do that? If you have a cluster VMware setup, maybe you wouldn't want to do that, or, but one of the problems we run into when we look at the way that VMware does clustering is, say I've got a Windows machine and it blue screens, or a patch goes wrong or something, or we get ransomware. Well, even if I migrate it over to the different host, I still have a dead machine. So I essentially have a zombie machine that I'm moving around, and I can't get it back up and running. Where if we enable this, what that allows us to do is to actually boot up on top of our virtual environment. So it's nested booting, but if we look at my laptop right here and we tell it we want to boot it up, we can see here I have 3 different instances that I can recover from. And if we look at one of my appliances I've had up and running for longer, we can see here on this iatoolbox.com, I have 138 different points of reference that I can boot up from and recover from. So if I got ransomware hit me yesterday, I can go to the day before and easily boot back up from that point in time. Now, when I say boot up from that point in time, what exactly do I mean? Well, let's look here at my laptop. Say I needed to boot it up real quick. My laptop got ran over by a car, or I left it on a bus. Well, easily I can come in here, pick the date and time I want to recover from, give it the amount of resources I want it to have, pick what network I want it to be on. So I could put it on the bridge network, which is going to be my production network, or I could put it on a private subnet. What's great about having the private subnet option is this allows us to boot it up and boot up other VMs and have them talk to each other, but not interfere with our public network or our production network. What's great about that is we can boot up multiple machines, test configuration changes, patches, and make sure everything's going to work before we roll it out into production. Now, in this particular environment, I'm going to go ahead and say no network. And then up here, I'm going to say this is a demo. Now I tell it to boot up. So now when I come over to my active tab, we can see now we have that machine that we just created, which is Chris's laptop demo. And we can see that it's, by this little arrow going around in a circle, it's booting that machine up for us. Now if we come in here, we can get our VNC password. So even though we didn't give it a network to connect to, we can still get to this machine. So here we'll click on that and we'll put our password in. And now we can see that that laptop is coming up and booting. We've got our Windows logo and it's coming online. Now the typical time to get power to any VM you want to turn on is seconds. The average boot time that we see is typically within minutes. Now that does have a little caveat attached to it. If Windows needs to do a check disk or something like that, we are going to have to wait for Windows to be able to do that check disk and bring everything online. Now, while we have that machine booting up, I'd like to talk a little bit about the different use cases for using a virtual appliance versus using a physical appliance from Infrascale. Now, the virtual appliance can be deployed on hardware you already exist. So if you used to have a different backup solution, maybe you want to repurpose that hardware, you could use the virtual appliance. So install the free version of VMware or Hyper-V on there, deploy our virtual appliance, and use that, use those resources. Now, where it's great to have an appliance supplied by us is maybe we have one ESX server, or maybe we have 2, but they use shared storage or something like that. Well, that's where it's great to be able to have us. So if that environment goes down, you can boot things up on top of our appliance. Now here we can see that we've got that machine's booted up and we can see the preview for that machine. Now, while we're talking about previews, come over here and look at clients, we can actually see that on my laptop, we can see how much space it's taking up, when the last successful backup was, and we have something called boot verification. What's great with boot verification is not only are we going to do a backup, but we're going to boot it on top of our appliance or in the virtual appliance, and we're going to take a screenshot to prove that not only did we back it up and say it was successful, but the backup was bootable. Now, what's great about that is you can have these automatically emailed to you. So you'll automatically get an email that shows when the last backups were and all the screenshots, which is a really great way to easily check and make sure that everything's working in your environment. Now, we can see we don't have it for all the machines, and that's because this is something we can configure. We can come in here and go to boot verification and turn it on and off. We can also configure the timeout for how long we want it to wait for that machine to come online. And then here we can actually configure what resources we want that machine to use when it's booting up. So maybe this machine needs a little bit more RAM than the default. We can configure all that here, save it, and then whenever we're going to do a test or boot it up, it's going to use those values. Now let's take a look at this machine. We've got this machine booted up. Let's say we ran my laptop on this and then I got some new hardware and I want to recover back to it. How do I do that? What's that process? Well, it's really easy. We're just going to go ahead and turn this machine off. I'm going to use pull plug because we are limited on time, which is just going to power this machine off. And then once we have this machine powered off, we can simply tell it that we want to create a backup job. That's going to be a backup of all the blocks that have changed while it was running on the appliance. Now again, I didn't speed that up at all. That's actually how long it takes to be able to do that backup because we're only backing up those blocks that changed. And now if I go over to my boot side, we can see we now have 4 recovery points for this machine. So I could either recover it here, or I could even go over to clients. And I can right click here and say I want to do a restore. And I want to restore that latest backup from running on the appliance. And I'm going to restore it either over the existing virtual machine or create a new one. I can pick what host I want to send it to, what data store I want it to go onto. I can even go in here and configure individual pieces of storage and where I want them to land. Give it a name for this machine. And then once it's restored, do I want to power it on? And then do I want to give it networking? So here I'd probably say no. Since I'm using my laptop right now, I don't want to have a conflict. And then I can hit finish and it's going to go out and rebuild that in my virtual environment, restore the machine, and then power it on for me. Now, this was just a quick preview of the Infrascale virtual appliance, kind of how to get it set up, get some clients on it, and get everything rocking and rolling. If you have any questions, absolutely reach out to your sales team, and they're going to be able to help set you up with a one-on-one demo or even an eval if you want to be able to test this out. Now, with that being said, I've done a lot of talking, so I'm going to go ahead and bring Kelly back in the loop and give her chance to go ahead and get some of her points out.
Thanks, Chris. I did have a question come through on the chat while you were presenting. They're asking what the required specs are for the hardware in order to put the virtual appliance on.
Absolutely. So let's go ahead and take a look, and I will show you guys some of that information. So if we take a look over here and we look at deploying the machines, well, if we come up here and we look at specifications, what that's going to show us is all of the physical machines that Infrascale is currently shipping. And this does get updated on a regular basis. So as we add storage or RAM or something like that, this will have the latest numbers. And this is a great place to kind of get a guide for, all right, well, I want to protect this much storage. Minimum is going to be 8 cores, 256 gigs of RAM, and that lets us go up to about 126 terabytes. So that's going to be something that's going to be sized based off the environment you're protecting. Now, if you're protecting 5 to 10 VMs, your RAM requirements are going to be much lower than if we're protecting 100 VMs. Same thing with the amount of storage and the amount of cores that we're going to need. So that's something that we can work with you on speccing out and sizing that virtual appliance to make sure it can handle that workload. Now, one important thing about that is make sure that when you're speccing it out, you're looking at used RAM and used CPU, not allocated RAM and allocated CPU. If we look at what's out there and it's allocated, we can actually see in a lot of instances that even though I have a lot of RAM allocated, I don't really have that much in use. And the same thing with CPU. So we don't need to massively over provision here when we're deploying these. So again, we can help you with that. You can look at our spec sheet on docs.infrascale.com, and that should help kind of give you where we're at. And we're actually in the process of publishing a virtual appliance kind of guidelines and caveats and things to look out for. I guess my biggest tip I would throw out there is don't grab an old machine that you decommissioned because it was slow. Put this on it and think it's going to be fast, right? We're still going to be limited by whatever that hardware is. So as long as you're using relatively modern hardware with SSDs for the catalogs, You're going to be able to back stuff up quickly, boot on it. All that functionality is going to work great for you.
Thanks, Chris. Another question that came through that I'll take is, how is this licensed? So this is licensed per instance. So just like Chris said, you don't have to use our cloud. You can have site A and the replication site B. So that would be 2 instances if that was the case. So it's per instance, per protected terabyte. If you're just doing on-site and then replicating to our cloud, there would be another line item for the replication services. And as far as pricing, if you have questions on that, I just advise you to get with your sales rep. They can walk you through that.
Yep, absolutely. So, with just a little clarification on that, if you're hosting your primary and your secondary and you're protecting a terabyte of data, then it would be 2 terabytes that you would need to license, one for the primary, one for the secondary.
Good example. Thanks, Chris. All right.
Let's look at some other tips and tricks.
Yes. So we just wanted to go through some of your resources. I know a lot of, like I said earlier, some of you have been partners for a really long time. Thank you. Some of you are brand new partners. Thank you. But we just wanted to make sure that everyone knew how to engage with Infrascale. Like I said, you likely know your sales rep pretty well. You can call us at any time. But, for support, for instance, please call support instead of me if you have a problem. So you can see the site there to reach support. There's also a phone number, a live chat, and an email address if you have a problem or need to open up a ticket. Also on that site, you'll see some other common support actions there. You're able to log into the dashboard, get the latest software and agents, all that kind of stuff. So it's a really good tool to have just to bookmark for that just in case.
Now, one thing I'll add to that is something we actually added in the last update to the appliances. So I'll jump back over and show you the appliance. If you click on the support tab, we've actually added the ability to open a case from right here. So you can easily go in and say, all right, I'm having a VM booting issue. Give it the email address you want them to reply to, any additional ones you want to send it to, your information, hit submit, and that'll automatically open up a case for you. So it's great that it's now built into the appliances to be able to open up those support tickets and get that response. Now, of course, Kelly said not to reach out to her first, and that's because support's 24/7. Kelly's, always there for you, but she might be taking a nap. So it's nice to reach out to the support team that's always there and available for you.
All right. Okay, so training. So I've been asked about training quite a bit in the past, and I just want to make sure everyone knows what your resources are. So for sales training, that would be delivered by your territory account manager or your partner success manager. So if you are in one of my territories, Carl and myself would be the ones to deliver that. Once upon a time, Carl might jump on a plane and go see you. But in the year 2021 so far, most everything's virtual at this point. But we're happy to just walk you through, hey, how to pitch our products, refresher of what the products are. We're even happy to get on the phone with you to pitch with an end user. We're measured on sales, right? That's our department. So we want to see you be successful and be able to sell these products. Now for product training, more so on the technical side, Chris, do you want to expand on that?
Sure, absolutely. So when it comes to product training, of course, we want you guys up to speed, knowing the latest and greatest and all of that. So we have 2 different routes for product training. We have the pre-sales, which is, you're going to get someone from me, either me or someone from my team, to come in and kind of give you a refresher. So great example, we hinted at some of the multi-factor, the Hyper-V integration. We have some other stuff coming out at the end of this month, beginning of next month. And so if you want to get an update on what's new with all these updates that are happening, we can absolutely jump on the phone and do some training sessions for you and your team. Now, if you want to actually, get trained on step-by-step, how do I manage this? How do I deploy this? How do I, overall best practices and all that? Then we actually do have a paid engagement from our implementation team. Now, implementation is included, implementation assistance, but if you wanted to get some hardcore training That's where we would look at doing a paid engagement, where we would actually pick what features and functionality you want to get trained on, and we'll bring in the implementation guys and make sure that you get all the latest and greatest information on that.
Thanks, Chris. All right, renewals. So I wanted to go through this. Most of you likely have experience with this, but I just wanted to go through some points. So you'll hear from your Infrascale account manager approximately 60 to 90 days before your renewal, just touching base, making sure we're all set for the renewal up ahead. Do you want to add licenses? Do you have questions? Anything like that? One update we do have is upon request, Infrascale Cloud Backup, ICB, can now be renewed on a month-to-month basis, in addition to annual or multi-year terms, which traditionally has always been the case. So we've just added the month-to-month option. If for whatever reason your end user decides, hey, we don't need this anymore, or heaven forbid, right, we're in tough times, some end users have gone out of business. If they're not going to be renewing, we just need 30 days notice on our end to make sure that that's all set. If we don't hear from you, contracts are auto-renewed after the term completion. So those are just some quick points. I know, like I said, most of you have dealt with our renewals team in the past, but just wanted to run through those for you. Okay, so when you have a new disaster recovery opportunity for us and you come to us and you say, hey, Kelly, I've got a really great opportunity for your DR product with XYZ company. They want to protect 3 terabytes and 4 servers. Can you please send me a quote? Or, oh, hey, I would like to have this appliance. So it works a little differently. We need a little more information from you to ensure we spec out the appropriate Infrascale appliance on our end. So we do currently have an online DRAS sizing questionnaire. Or if you work with me, I have an Excel spreadsheet that I send out, which I know Chris doesn't like very much. But we are getting a new online sizing form coming out soon that's a little more streamlined. So all of you will receive that as soon as we have it. Chris, do you want to expand on just why it's so important to receive this sizing information from the partner?
Yeah, absolutely. So you kind of hit it. We want to make sure that we have the right amount of resources, RAM, CPU, storage, to match how many machines they want to boot, to match what their retention is and how long they want to be able to keep that data, and how frequently they want to back it up. Now, it's important to fill this out, even if you're going with a virtual appliance. And that's one of the things we're actually adding to that new sizing form, is to be able to pick physical or virtual. And we can help you spec out what that virtual appliance should look like to make sure that we got enough resources that everyone's going to have a great experience, right? We don't ever want to undersize a client and then just have it, not work correctly for them. We want to make sure we've got the right resources so that everything works as expected.
Thank you. All right. So this slide was going to be just me talking about the new sales team, meaning for new business, and how we are here to help. But since I'm such a visual person, I thought we'd make it a little fun and include some photos of some of the team. So how can we help, right? So you likely know who we are. I'm one, a partner success manager. Everyone on here is here to help you, but how can we help beyond, getting you signed on as a partner, beyond quoting? So we are your Infrascale champions. Like I said, we are measured on sales, right? So the more our partners sell, the more, I'll just say it, the more money we make, right? That's how sales works. So we want to see you successful. We are here to help you sell to your clients. Like I said, if you want to get us on the phone with your end user and help you pitch this, we can do that. If you want us to coordinate a demo with our engineer to show your end user the product, we can certainly do that. We also do quoting, sales training, like I mentioned. Just we're your overall champion. We want to see a successful partnership. We want you to be happy. we're here for you. So you might see your sales rep there up on the screen. Things looking a little differently these days. Lots of, I see a drive-through haunted house event that Jason did, and staying at home and playing games with family with Jay. Lots of people with their pets. It's certainly been an interesting year, but we really are so thankful for all of you, and we enjoy working with you. And if you guys have questions about anything we've talked about today, you can of course reach out to myself or whoever invited you to this meeting. You might even see their photo there on the screen. All right, so I think we've got just 2 more slides. So Chris talked about this already, docs.infrascale.com. I threw the link up in the chat a little bit ago. Please bookmark that. It is a great tool and resource for you. I'm not going to harp too much on it because Chris has already kind of gone through it, but it's a great place to get technical info on our products.
Yep, it's got everything from install guides, how to back up QuickBooks, how to do this, that, or the other, how to deploy in a virtual environment, to release notes. What's in the latest version? We're at 8.4 now. 8.5 is coming out in a month or two. It'll give you a great way to be able to see what's in there and do I need to upgrade to it. So it's just a great place to have anything Infrascale documentation wise is all going to be here.
All right, next up, the Partner Resource Center. So we've talked about this in the past on these calls, but I feel like this is an underutilized site. So maybe one of my colleagues will throw the link in there as I'm talking, but the link's up there on the screen. Feel free to bookmark it. The password, super top secret, it's Infrascale with a capital I. So it will ask you for a password. I think it's just the first time you log in. But this is where you can find all of our product information, sales info, presentations, case studies, campaign in a box. So they've done a lot of work on putting that together for you, the campaign in a box, to send information out to your clients. Information on ransomware mitigation. You can see all of it there. I've had partners ask me, hey, I'd like to add disaster recovery as a tab on my website. Do you have something I could just use? And we do. So all of that's there for you. Official logos, and I think under partner updates, I believe that that's a connection to our blog, which Chris, you've written for several times, haven't you?
I have, and I'm currently in the process of writing another blog entry. I'm updating the bare metal recovery versus DRAS, why you would choose one over the other and where it's appropriate to use them. So absolutely, our blog content, we've really stepped up our social game there. And we've also updated almost every single data sheet that we have available in the past couple of months to be current, relevant with all the solutions that we're offering. So if you haven't been there in a little bit, definitely go in there, check it out. Look at the new documentations, the case studies, the white papers and all that. It's all getting updated on a regular basis now.
Yes, thank you, Chris. All right. Well, we are at 2:45, so I really appreciate everyone for staying. Anyone who wants to stay after for some Q&A, we can certainly run through some questions. You can either throw it in the chat or you can unmute yourself and just ask the question. And while we're waiting on any potential questions, I do want to mention, I left out earlier, our support team actually just won a Stevie Award, a gold Stevie Award, which is fantastic. It's a very high honor. We just posted about it on our LinkedIn page. So we're very, very proud of our support team for winning that. Feel like you don't hear of that too often. So we were really excited for the team to win that. Okay, I had one question come through privately. Okay, you mentioned disaster recovery. What are your other products? Sure thing. So Chris talked about the virtual appliance for our Infrascale Disaster Recovery product, which is traditionally an appliance to cloud model. Other products I'll highlight quickly are Infrascale Cloud Backup, which is for endpoints, and it's a direct to cloud model. Pooled storage, license per protected terabyte per month. Also our Infrascale Cloud Application Backup product, which is our SaaS backup. So that's for Office 365, OneDrive, SharePoint, Salesforce.com, Box, Dropbox. I might be leaving one out. But those are the products. We've got another flavor of disaster recovery if you just need local spin. Let me see here. During the demo, he mentioned you need to have fast SSD. What are the storage specs of the drives and memory in the appliance? Is it fast SSD? Is it fast memory? Chris, I'll let you take that.
Sure, absolutely. So we currently use SSD to be able to do our catalogs and to back them up or to use our catalogs for doing our fingerprint database and our block level dedupe. As far as an all SSD appliance, that might be something that's coming perhaps here in the next couple months. So we can talk about that later once that's official. But right now we do use catalogs again on SSD so that we have that high performance. Now, say you were deploying the virtual appliance, there's nothing that says you couldn't put all of the storage on SSD if you wanted to. Really, it's whatever you want to provide as storage is what we're going to use, and you're going to be able to take immediate advantage of those performance benefits.
Thanks, Chris. All right. One last call for questions. Maybe someone's typing one in right now.
Do you see the little dots?
I don't see the little dots. I need the little dots. And Chris, I like how you used the example, Kelly might be taking a nap. When I have a 3-year-old, of all things.
Well, that's why you would need a nap.
I do need a nap. All right, there's a question there. Do you see it, Chris?
I do not.
Okay. Regarding Microsoft licensing, when running a production server on the Infrascale appliance, do I need to purchase another Microsoft server license?
You don't, because your production machine, if you're running it on our appliance, would be down. So it'd be using that same license that you already have to be able to be up and running. Now, if you were to boot a machine on top of the RBox and leave it up for a prolonged period of time, that's where you would have to talk to your Microsoft rep and see what their take on that would be. But as far as being able to boot up and do some test config changes and stuff like that, Microsoft gives out, I think it's now 60-day trial licenses for all their products. So as long as you don't have it up and running for longer than that period of time, you'd be within that trial licensing. And then for a production outage, you know, that production machine would be down and you'd be up and running using that exact same license on top of our appliance. You'd just be running on top of different hardware.
Thanks, Chris. All right. Well, it is 2:50, so we've taken these kind people 5 minutes past time. So I'm gonna, oh, Todd's got a question. This is the last question. What features can we look forward to in the next release of the cloud?
As far as release of the cloud, I'm not exactly sure what we're asking for there. There are some features that are different if you use our cloud versus hosting your own secondary. So if you use our cloud, we give you orchestration and network control and all kinds of fun bells and whistles. If you're going to host the secondary, we can't provide that because we don't control your network and your environment. So, you know, it's one of those things where you would have to set up your own way to be able to access that DR site. Now, if we're talking about for cloud backup and other things like that, we have all kinds of things coming down the pipeline, and we have some big press releases coming here at the end of the month and the end of next month also. So we'll definitely make sure that we get you out that information and let you know all the things that are going on here at Infrascale.
All right. Thanks, Chris. Well, with that, we are going to wrap up. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. We really appreciate your time. We know your time is valuable. Thank you for your partnership. Thank you for your business. and we hope you have a fantastic rest of the day.